Topping Talks. 105 hours a week can't be beat. Welcome to Topping Talks. Topping Talks is a Topping Tribune production, and today's episode is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies and ExpressVPN. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Have to say he's quite handsome and brilliant. If you're a business in Texas and could use a hand, you can reach them at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, are you part of the 3.6% of Americans who still care about privacy? If you are, then perfect. ExpressVPN can assist. Even though 96% of stats are made up on the spot, ExpressVPN does give a 100% guarantee via their 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, without further ado, I'm proud to say today I'm interviewing U.S. Navy veteran and current IT manager at Amazon, Ken Brown.
Hey, Topping, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming on the show, bud. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I was glad you reached out to me. I think it's crazy how we all connect in this world today, right? Via social media, via whatever, right? So you reaching out to me on LinkedIn and just asking me to come on here has been amazing, man.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nowadays I've met more people on LinkedIn than happy hours or any trade association or cybersecurity events we've gone to.
Oh yeah, right. And look, man, it's amazing because this is probably like the second time that LinkedIn has done something for me that I think that people kind of misconstrue what that platform does. But I connected with a peer of mine who was in the Navy.
Oh, really?
A year prior to me getting out. And so I didn't even know the guy. I just kind of linked up with him. He was in IT in the Navy. He was down in Florida. So would never have crossed paths. I lived in Virginia for 20 years. So would have never crossed paths with this guy. So part of my story that we'll talk about later. But basically, he like messaged me and said, "Hey, man, I saw your resume." And I was like, "This is insane, dude." He's like, "Yeah, I remember we connected." And just, kind of fate, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
So fate that you and I kind of linked up and saw each other.
Oh, absolutely. I know we're kind of going way back in time, but when you growing up, what first inspired you to join the Navy?
Oh man. So look, the Navy was the military was pushed onto me in the aspect of either you're going to the military or you're going to college.
Yep.
And it was like really kind of shoved down our throats. We had those parents who were just very like strict and stern, and I get it, right? Who doesn't?
So they were good parents.
They were good parents, right? Right. They got the belt after you if you didn't do it right. So the interesting part is that I guess I took it to heart, right? So I kind of got frustrated with the environment that I was in. Made a right turn and just said, "Hey, look, I'm going to go down to the recruiting station." Just made a decision. I was a grown kid. I felt like I was a grown up. I was like, I'm going to go do this. So I was 17. I would have turned 8, or I was 18. I would have turned 19 by the time I left. So I was like, I'm a grown up. I'll go do this. So I went down to the recruiting station and signed up. Literally took the ASVAB. I'm like sitting there like doing this, boom, boom, boom. I come home. I tell my mom, I'm like, "Hey, just want to tell you something. I joined the military and I joined the Navy and I'm leaving in like a month, right?" She like has this like fit like any good mother should do, right? And she is like, "What in the world?" She's like, "No, it's not happening." She's bawling.
Oh.
She's like, "No."
That's what you told me.
Right. In 1997, you didn't pick up your phone either, right? And be like, "Let me look up the recruiting station." So she had to find the phone number for the recruiting station in the white pages or the yellow pages or whatever, and get this phone number and call these guys. And she is yelling at them on the phone. I've only seen my mother yell at like a couple other people in my lifetime. And she's like, "No, it's not happening." And so they convince her that it is happening, but it can happen at a later date. Mm. So as I joined the military, I look back and like you get asked that, right? Like you get asked this during your time, like, why'd you join? Yep. What's your purpose? My purpose was really like obscure because I had a father who just was not like the greatest man on the planet. He was just very like abusive and whatnot like that. So it was unfortunate, but it like created this person that is sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. So it created this person that like overcame obstacles to get to the place where I needed to be. And that's why I look at it like, that's why I joined the Navy. I knew I needed something better than what I had. And so the Navy molded me into this dude that like you see in front of you.
There you
I'm
go.
like animated. I love life. I, do not want to cause harm to anybody kind of things. So that's I guess that's a long-winded response to your answer.
No, I like it.
So, but I also looked up, tell me if I'm like long-winded. I'm so sorry, man.
No such thing.
So I looked up, when I was young, I remember we lived on this cul-de-sac and I like had started thinking about like, hey, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I got this book of some sort and it had radio communications, like this dude in the jungle. He's got a radio on his back. And I was like, that looks so cool. So I was like, oh, radio communication sounds so cool. So I haven't been in IT the entire 23 and a half years I've been in the Navy. It's like 20 years, right? So when I came in the Navy, they were called, my rate or my job was called RM or radioman.
Oh, cool.
So I went to boot camp, I went to training, and then I went to Iceland.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I like surprised the heck out of people because I just told you a minute ago that I spent 20 years in Norfolk. So insane, right? So I went to Iceland, the most obscure place on the planet next to like Malta and Diego Garcia. So I went to Iceland. It's not as cold as it seems. I was like, this is awesome. So, but while I was there, I talked to P3 Orions, which is an aircraft that hunts submarines. So we basically communicated with them and made sure that they had communications to kind of report things that they found back. And that was our job, right? Just to make sure that they had communications. Super cool job. I loved every second of it. Also, it was in a really cool place. So we got to see all kinds of, glaciers, waterfalls, all kinds of things that you get to see. So it took me somewhere I'd never been. And so it was super cool. Kid from West Texas, Lubbock, West Texas, all the way to Iceland. I was like, sure, man, let's go.
That's a unique experience.
Yeah, dude. It's not every day that you get to like leave your hometown, right? You're from Cuba, so you understand like leaving and just going and this like fear, right? Like you have this fear, like what the hell am I going to do?
Exactly. Well, my mom's from Cuba. I was born here.
Oh, well, but either way, right? So you understand that like coming from a different country, a different place, right? So you live through your mother, right? And so you understand like, hey, it's this fear, right?
Oh, yeah.
What the heck is going on? I remember being in Iceland and being like, I don't even know what I've done with myself. But you grow, right?
Oh, yeah.
We both like have learned to overcome those adversities. So it was super awesome.
So you started off doing radio work in the Navy, and then how do you make that kind of that tangent pivot turn, or how do you get into IT in the Navy?
So it was a pivot, right? Because like when we look back, right, that's 1999, 2000. So now you're all like in the middle of this, like what was Y2K and this fear mongering of like, oh my God, the world's going to collapse. Right.
Yeah. Nothing will work.
And nothing will work.
Do you remember the Best Buy stickers? So Best Buy, like every company was selling solutions for this, but they actually used to sell, and they had stickers on all the PCs. They said there's like a sticker.
Oh, it's Y2K.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, now I know.
Reset your computer.
Yes. So we're right in the middle of that like craziness, right? So we hear about this. I'm up in Iceland. I leave right around 2001. 99. You're going to get me confused. I'm so sorry.
No worries,
so
man.
2000, 2001, I'm pretty sure Y2K happened while I was there. So I transition, I leave and come to Norfolk, Virginia. So they drop me in this command that is like 25 people. And I'm an E5, right? So
what's an E5 for someone in layman's terms?
So in layman's terms, we like to call it the person who like takes all the crap from leaders above and then like dishes out this crap to the leaders below or to the guys below them, right? So it's right in the middle of the rank structure for the military in general, right? So your E5s in every military branch seem to do like most of the grunt work, if you will, right? So they're like your middle of the road workers that are just getting all the work done. They're either directing people or they're like, what do I need to do? Can we go home? Kind of things. So I was brand new E5. I'd barely been in the Navy for like a minute. They were like dang near handing that rank out to people.
Oh, really?
So I came in as an E1. So we're talking like 18 months and I was an E5.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
That's
I came
phenomenal.
in as an E1, boom, 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 boom. And 18 months, maybe a year later or 2 years later, I was like an E5. So I was like this brand new dude who like needed to lead people and like take crap from the leader above me. And I was like, what do you want me to do? I get to this command, and they're like, hey, you're going to be the sysadmin. And I was like, I don't even know what you just said to me. I just came from a command where I talked to to aircraft on a voice circuit. I have no idea what you're talking about. So they showed me these they were computer towers.
Yeah.
We're talking like the late 90s, early 2000s, man. So they're just these computer towers. They're not even servers like what you and I have seen, where it's, rack mounted or anything. Yeah. And they're like, that's our PDC. Oh my goodness. PDC and BDC. Oh my goodness, man. I had to reach back for that one. And it was on NT, right? So I've seen the worst of the worst and what we see now. But basically they dropped me in this command and they said, hey, be the sysadmin. I was like, listen, I cannot sit here in good faith and tell you guys that I have any idea what's going on. I was like, you need to send me to training yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they did. And I was kind of surprised because I was just honest with the guy in charge. And I was like, listen, you've got to send me to training. Yeah. And you've got to send me to a lot of training. I've never done this. This is not even in my wheelhouse. Sent me to training. They literally left and went on deployment. So he got on the ship, sent me to training. They left and went across the ocean. And they were like, hey, you will meet us when we get over there. And I was like,
oh, wow.
Oh, we're going to do this now. So not only was Iceland an experience, I got to basically leave from Norfolk, Virginia, and travel to Rome, Italy, and then ride by train down to Naples and meet the ship. And be picked up there.
That's incredible.
I was like, sure, let's go. By the time I was kind of going through that process, the next deployment that we had to do with that team, that staff, I was making recommendations to upgrade servers to hey, this is what we need to migrate to. This is how we do it. And they took full belief in me. And I was like, dude, this is kind of insane. I've barely been in IT, making decisions for this team. And then sure enough, the monster that is Navy Marine Corps Internet, so NMCI, started coming into the picture, and they started talking about how it was going to take over everything, and they were going to come in. I was transitioning out and went to a totally different command. I was like, thank God. From there, I kind of went from being a sysadmin to being a database administrator. Super cool. Opportunity. The things I can talk about in that space are that there's these commands that plan missions for the gigantic cruise missiles that you see shot up off these aircraft or the ships and the submarines. Yeah. You see these missiles on, Google image search a Tomahawk cruise missile, and they have missions inside them. In fact, great story. I'll tell you exactly what's funny. Have you seen that new movie, Top Gun?
Of course.
Maverick, right? So in that movie, they talk about how there is this ventilation system in the middle of that mountain, right?
Right.
And they're like, hey, look, it's so amazing that you guys are going to have to, or it's so hard to get a missile in there. You guys are going to have to go in there. We're going to have to go inverted. They're so extensive about it. I'm like, sure. So basically what they were alluding to is that GPS was being jammed in that area. And so that's what some of those missiles are guided by. Yep. So somebody has to plan that, right? So you don't just shoot a missile in the air and pray to God it gets to its target. No. There's a lot of this planning and execution that goes on that says, hey, go here, checkpoint, go here, checkpoint. And so I worked at that command where we did that.
Oh, wow.
And so the other piece of that is, though, it's not just checkpoint, hey, I need the coordinates of X spot on the ground so that it can coordinate with the satellites, right? So there's imagery that goes into it. So my job and my team's job was to take these CDs or DVDs and sadly some of these VHS tapes.
Whoa.
Right. And download the, bring in all that data, right? And so if they needed imagery from X place on the Earth, we would upload it into the system for them. So manually, right? Right. So no cloud, right? We're still in the world of where we don't have this stored in the cloud, even a secure cloud, which is insane because it was just storage upon storage. It was like the best DVD collection on the planet. So and that was normal, right? So you even look, and that was like 2005.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and you're like, dude. But it was awesome time, man. So I worked in an environment where it was a skiff. So it was a secured control, sensitive compartmented information facility. So it was basically a facility that we could talk about things that didn't leave the room.
Yeah.
So there's this understanding, right? You don't like talk about that crap.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of feel like, so I don't even know if the time has passed long enough. You remember as the war trickled on over there, you'd like see these clips of news reporters, and there'd be explosions in the back and whatnot like that.
Yeah.
At one point, I believe they identified that we like planned the mission for this explosion that occurred in the background. And they're like, oh, you know, so they're all excited about the work that they've done and whatnot. So it's super cool. It was a great time. I got to like near the end of my time there, I got to like go and audit or inspect other commands that did the same thing. And try to like raise their standards, right? So it's a huge thing that we do in the Navy. We try to like hold each other accountable.
Yep.
And so I did that near the end of the time there. Eventually I moved on. I stayed in Norfolk, Virginia forever. It seems like. Met my wife in 2006. So it like completely changed the trajectory of my career to stay in that area. So I moved from there to a helicopter squadron.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think previously, when you and I talked, I don't think I mentioned that I had been at this helicopter squadron. It's like such a bad memory for me. They like treated me like very like a third-rate citizen because they're aviation. Like they're like, oh, we fly airplanes and stuff.
Aren't they still part of the Navy though?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, same
hugely.
team. Yeah.
But it's just like that Top Gun, man. Like they're like, we're pilots.
Yeah.
Like, okay, thanks.
Do they have
guys.
the aviators and everything?
Oh yeah. Dudes, it's just like, okay, cool. You jump out of helicopters. Cool. Thanks, buddy. You know what I do? I do ones and zeros. Thanks.
Yeah.
So
those helicopters crash without me.
Yeah. It's a funny story. So the best part of that whole command, outside of just the crap, right? The unfortunate thing, it's a kind of an unfortunate story, but it was an awesome a time for me to be able to like help somebody. So this helicopter crashes in the mountains. It is cold. It is like you don't traverse that terrain very easily. So this helicopter crashes. They like call me up and they're asking me about the devices inside the helicopter. And so I'm like on the phone and trying to find out what we need to do. I'm like, the helicopter's crashes in the middle of God's nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, why do we need to worry about it? They're like, no, get that stuff off the helicopter.
Like the IT gear or the data or
so there's
people
cryptographic devices on there
Yep.
so that they can communicate back to the shore via secure means, things like that. So they identifying friend or foe, things like that, all that kind of stuff. There's devices in there that are sensitive. So they want those devices out of the helicopter. And I'm like, listen, man, sure, I'll tell them. So we got them to get them out of there.
Really?
But the part that was really interesting to me, and I guess was a good time for me in the aspect of, I got to like take this laptop. They're like, hey, listen, this guy's like kind of like from his legs down. He can't move right now, and he's in North Carolina, and we were up in Norfolk, Virginia. We're like, hey, we're gonna like fly down there and see him. And I was like, we're just gonna go do that. And they're like, yeah. And we want you to take him a laptop so that he can work. And I was like, man, say no more. I was like, that sounds really cool. So I got to take this helicopter ride down to North Carolina for like an hour and a half, like sitting and watching out the side of the helicopter as we like fly by things. It was
That's
so
awesome.
amazing. I was like, dude, this is probably like the second or third best thing that's happened to me in the Navy.
Yeah.
Unfortunate thing, the guy was, injured and whatnot. But we got him kind of like set up and able to work so that he could just feel, the need. Right.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a big thing, right? So if you talk to veterans, they just want to feel the need, right? And that's a big piece of it. So from there, I went to, oh man, now I've got to like do the rewind. From there, I went to this place called Network Warfare Command, right? So Naval Network Warfare Command. So basically, we were this. We talked about NMCI a hot second ago.
Yeah.
So we were this command called GSOC, so Global Support Operations Command inside NetWarcom. And basically, we're these guys where we were tracking incidents and events that happened all across the Navy's networks. And let's pretend that there was like this event in your account, you needed assistance, and somebody was supposed to be helping you.
Yep.
We could like turn off people's accounts.
Yep.
Couldn't turn them back on, but we could turn them off for whatever reason. But we basically were monitoring all the events that occurred that were around the Navy's networks. So we were, taking all that and then briefing the commander and whatnot. So it was this group of people. It was a small command that got absorbed by a bigger command, but basically we were this small command that was tracking all this data with civilians. It was super awesome. I enjoyed it. While I was there, so I was there 17 days, and they were like, "Hey, we need somebody with your skills. Do you mind going on deployment?" So I run home, and I'm like, "Listen." They asked me if I can go on deployment, and I said yes. And my wife's like, "Sure, go do what you got to do, dude."
Yep.
So I went on deployment 17 days after reporting to his brand new command. So I just went on a ship, some random ship that needed me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
you know where you're going to go. You just
no, yeah. We did, so funny story. As we get out there, we're basically hunting pirates out in the middle of do you know where Djibouti, Africa is?
Yeah.
So basically that little horn right there.
Yeah.
We basically were tracking pirates and whatnot.
Really?
So pulled into Djibouti, Africa numerous times. Everybody's like, "Have you ever been to Djibouti?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude. The Air Force galley is amazing there."
Yeah.
So after I get back, I came back and got qualified to do my job. Since I had no time to start doing that before I left. So I came back, got qualified, did my job. And then this new thing came up. We moved into a new building across the Hampton Roads area, and this volunteer opportunity came up. So they took this ship called the USS Ponce, and they decided to make it into a special warfare platform.
Really?
So they took this ship, and they're like, "Listen, we're going to make it a float forward staging base. So these spec war guys can land on it, they can get all their crap together, and they can operate from there, right? So they can go to these oil platforms, things like that." And I was like, "Oh man, that sounds really cool." And my boss, who is the chief at the time, he's like, "You should go."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, dude, I'll apply, whatever, cool." So I kind of get all the documentation. In the Navy, we don't apply online because God forbid we actually do something electronic. You have to fill out this message and type everything in and then send it off.
When was that?
And this was in 2014, I think.
Oh, wow.
2000, so we're talking
the internet's here.
yeah. The internet's here. Electric forms are here.
Yeah.
Adobe is doing electric forms.
Got DocuSign, all
It's so crazy. So I submit, and of the candidates, they picked me and this other dude. And they're like, "So I don't know how many people applied. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I was selected out of 100 or 20 or whatever. But me and this other dude got selected. And they're like, "Basically, we want you guys to take this network that we almost killed, and we want you to bring it back to life." And we're like, "Okay, you sure?" This network had these old switches on it. We had to learn a whole new language.
How old are we talking?
So imagine that the ship is being decommissioned, right? So taken out of service. So it's 40 years. So it could be in the last 10 years that they had just put these switches on there. And so we're like, what in the world? It's not Cisco. I think it was, I don't want to say, I think it was Juniper, but I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. But had a whole different CLI.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there having to try to understand what we're doing and be so we can turn ports on, so we can reconfigure configurations, things like that. It was just so insane. It was the old version of way we set up networks on ships. So we're like, "Dude, sure, we'll make this happen." So we did make it happen. We got it working. We actually had this functionality, right? So they put more network infrastructure. They tore out berthings where people slept and whatnot.
Yeah.
They tore those out and built these operating spaces for the SEALs and whatnot,
Cool.
Rangers and SEALs.
Yeah.
So basically they made this big giant operations space where they had TVs on the wall and switches running into there, and so that everybody could sit down. You could have probably set 80 people in there.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, they're never going to use all this. There's just no way. I mean, we literally had like 4 or 5 people in there sitting on the edges of the aisle. But basically, they had it where we could. We told them, listen, we need to be able to like segregate those networks, but we want to be able to use the network infrastructure while it exists. And I'd never seen this done, but the guy came up with this switch, literally a mechanical switch. So we basically went in there and turned it so that it segmented the network so that it could not talk to our network.
Oh, cool.
And then flip it back when they left so we could utilize their drops and whatnot. It was like I was like, this is insane. I can't even believe we're doing this.
That's awesome. Did he MacGyver it or what?
Dude, it's like a MacGyver thing. So we literally walked in there and just flipped a switch.
Yeah.
And it allowed us to access all the drops on that side of the network.
That's awesome.
I was like, this is insane. So some of the things that I got to see were, unreal. I literally was in charge of like 7 or 8 people. We had to talk to Apache helicopters landing on the deck. So cool. I'm doing communications again. Yeah. And I'm doing the network stuff and leading those guys. So I'm doing both sides of my job. Yeah. And making sure that this thing stays literally afloat. So it was insane. So there was only 55 military on there. So my IT was probably the team was probably the biggest portion of that. So we're basically doing communications and IT stuff. So it was amazing. Got back home from that. I spent literally 15 months doing that. Oh, wow. So it was a long deployment. They were like, hey, you're going to be over there. We took it all the way over to Bahrain, took that ship all the way over to Bahrain. And they were just, I want to say within the last 8 years or so, probably, they replaced it with a different ship. So it has this weird, they can ballast the ship down so that they can get some of the SEAL boats in there, things like that. So they can land helicopters on the top of it. It's a massive looking tanker ship.
That's clever.
So they totally redesigned the thought process for it. Yeah. So super interesting opportunity. And then I came back and a year and a half later. So as you know, we make rank. We talked about making rank, how early I made E5. So I was in E6 for the longest time. I knew I wasn't ready to hey, look, I just know I need some time under my belt. I need to lead people, things like that. I made the next rank in 2013. So I literally came back. It was literally a year and a half, and I was not ready to make this next rank. I was like, what in the world? It just came. And I was like, okay, cool. And making the next rank in the Navy is huge as far as E7 goes. So they don't call it an E7 in the Navy. It's a chief. Oh, okay. So we will, so I say that right and say it lightly, only like you said in layman's terms. Yeah. Right. So you'll never hear somebody in the Navy be like, oh, an E7. No, we call it a chief. And then a senior chief and a master chief. And people always try to be like, hey, what's that? My dad asks me all the time. He's like, what's the difference? Are you going to make E8? And I was like, no, Dad, I'm trying to make senior chief. Stop. I made chief, and it was probably the best experience of my life, right? You look back on it, and you're like, that was worth every second of it. It was daunting. It was 6 weeks. So they take you away from your job, and they're like, hey, listen, you still have to do your job, but we're going to train you for 6 weeks. And I'm like, but they really pull you away from your job. They literally take you away and come over here. And then they give you all this tasking, right? So it looks like this sheet in front of us, and it's got all these taskers on it, and you've got to try to finish it. And they're all unaccomplishable.
Really?
It's all tasks that you can't get done because you're overwhelmed by the nature of what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And so you're reprogramming this person to think differently. How do I accomplish this without failing? Yeah. And you just really want to accomplish it because you're trying to please the person in front of you, and you're like, dude, I need to get this done. And you try to remove that I, right? I need to get this done. And you start to think about the we need to get this done. And so you fail and fail and fail. You get down to the last, to the 4th week or the 5th week. And they start to you gain this confidence for some unnatural reason. And you become this person that will tell people no. And like, hey, no, we can't do that. Like, stop. Like, hey, this is silly. And you start to like push back, and you start to realize that you have this like this badassness in you that you're like, hey, listen, this is not going to happen this way. We can't do this. And then they do this thing called Final Night, right? I won't get into the details of like what it is or why it is.
Yeah.
But you know how Marines like go through their they have NCOs, like their Hell Week or whatever. Like, so we do that in one night. Like,
holy shit. That's
so or one day, right? So we start off at 5 a.m. and we literally just kind of go through the motions of what we've done for 6 weeks. So we got like they give us tasks. They like PT you until you're tired. So real goal is to make you tired.
And what's PTU just in layman's terms?
PT. So like workout, right? Okay. So we go on marches. We like work out, crawl over each other in the sand, out of the sand.
Oh, geez.
Events where it's historical, right? So like so you're there to learn just as well as you are there to be tired. But it's meant to kind of like bring you into this moment that you're about to join a group of people that consider themselves very, have high standards, right? This fraternity. And so by the end of the night, you are exhausted. You're like, what are we doing here? I remember one moment, so I can't tell you this piece. It's kind of funny. So the Sailor of the Year happens in the Navy. So we have this person, these 5 people-ish, that make rank through a process by merit. So they basically are, their commands have said, hey, they've done this. They go through this board process, numerous board processes, where they sit and ask questions, answer questions to a board, and they are selected, right? So they're like, hey, this person is worthy of putting on the next rank early. So before us, right? So we had one of these people in my group as I went through this process. She was already wearing like her anchors and her new uniform. And so she comes to us and she's going through this process, and we're like, what are you doing? Like, what in the world? So funny story. We get to the final night portion of it, and she's there. And before we knew what we were doing, they had us dig this hole in the sand in this beach. So we dig this hole, and we're like, whatever, dude. And so they circle us up, and it's like the sun is setting. It looks like, like any of those movies that you see where people are working out on the beach, and they're all gathered up, whatever. So they're like, okay, so of your group, who has worked the least in your group this entire 6 weeks? Man, there were 10 of us, including her, and all 9 of us were like, you, get in the hole. We had no qualms, man. At this point, we were so savage to each other. We were like, nah, just get in the hole. And so they have pictures of this young lady standing in the middle of this hole in the beach, and then seconds go by, right? And they're like, you should all be in the hole. And we're like, oh, man, we cannot win even on the little things. So sure enough, we're all like, oh, great. We like failed that one too. And then the final piece is like really convincing somebody that you deserve to be there. And it's just so daunting on your emotions. And like, you really realize that this brotherhood and sisterhood of what you've joined is amazing, and nobody can question it. And so the next 7 years I spent being a chief, and that really is defined as like the fact that you're supposed to take care of your people. You take care of the mission that the Navy has given you, take care of your people. And so that's what I did. Like, I just took care of people. I was like, this is amazing. I know how to do this. Learned lots of great things from great people, learned a lot of bad things from people that I did not ever want to do again. And so as I moved from that Networcom command, I moved to a ship. Let me tell you the story, man. This is amazing. I don't know how much time we have left, but this is amazing. So I like email this guy, and I'm like, hey, man, listen, I've never been on a ship. So my entire career, I had never been stationed on a ship. So people look at me just like you looked at me, like, what?
I thought
no. So like sailors, they belong on ships, and I'm an IT. I should have gone to a ship way early on. So literally like 14 years into my career, and I had 14, 15 years in my career, I had not been stationed on a ship at ship's company. And people were like, you're kidding me. So now I'm a chief, and I'm this guy who's supposed to lead people on a ship. And I was like, oh, this is going to be terrifying. So I emailed this dude who just made chief. He's like a brand new chief. And I was like, hey, dude, listen, man, I have never been stationed on a ship. So like some of the intricacies of like what you guys do there and whatnot like that, I have never had to deal with. And so he's like, oh, okay, cool, man. So I come over and visit. I'm checking in. We go see the Master Chief. So if for those that don't know, man, Master Chiefs are these scary people. They're not scary in a bad way. They are just wise beyond their years for whatever reason. And they have like the quippiest way of like responding to people. And so to understand that part of the story, I had to tell you that. But we go in and see this Command Master Chief. He's been around. Like he's got a mustache that looks like a broom that you get at Home Depot for your shop. Right. So, and a bald head. And I'm like, oh man, this dude's going to be good. So I'm confident. I'm like, hey, you know, nice to meet you, Scott. He'll figure it out once he hears. I'm going to like send this to him once we get done with this and be like, hey, I talked about you on this podcast. But this dude's like, hey, Ken has something he wants to tell you. And I was like, dude, you did not just put me on the spot. So I have to tell, I'm like honest and kind of forthcoming with information. And I was like, listen, man, I've never been on a ship. This is my first time. And he's like, really? And I was like,
how?
Like, dude, yes, I know. He's like, okay, first year. So that is literally like a slang and like we kind of punch the brand new chiefs in the face a little bit and call them first years because they don't know how to transition from being that rank to this new rank. And so they act a little bit silly. So he started calling me first year. I'd been a chief for like 3 years.
Oh, really?
So he's calling me first year. So it leads on, it goes on, it goes on. I was on the ship for 3 years.
What kind of ship was it?
It's a LHD. So it's this massive ship. It's probably the biggest ship compared to an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
So it has a flight deck, vertical takeoff. So like your the jets that can hover.
Oh yeah.
And then fly off, and then helicopters. And so Marines go on there. The ship can sink and take on hovercraft. So that tanks can go inside and things like that. We deploy Marines basically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
So this guy, this Command Master Chief, he gets the CO and XO calling me first year too. And I'm like,
what the hell?
In front of like the entire wardroom, I'm like, so I just kind of became a really like, it wasn't a bad joke, I don't think. Yeah. I think it was more so like a, like, hey, haha, kind of punch you in the arm kind of thing. But it was goodness in it. So I moved on from there and went back to that. So NetWarCom was the command I was at previously. Mm-hmm. And then I went to this command called Navy Cyber Defense Operations Command and managed like 75 people. It was like the most people I've ever managed and like this crazy job. So I'd always dealt with them and never really like understood their job. Mm-hmm. And then I was thrown into the thick of it. And so we basically took all the vulnerabilities that were occurring and we mitigated those. So like if you had peer-to-peer software, you had beaconing on your network, we were the ones that were going to reach out to you and be like, hey, like you have this going on. We need to help you. Yep. So that's what my team did. And as I get to the end of my like life in the Navy, I was like really ready to exit the Navy. I was really ready to exit. So I spent 23 years and 7 months, and everybody's like, Ken, why didn't you just go to 24? And I was like, dude, listen, when you know, like you are exiting, you're ready to go. So I was ready to go I like put my papers in at 2 years, and started working on becoming a civilian, trying to figure out what that looked like for me.
So you gave them 2 years notice?
Yeah.
That's really polite.
Yeah.
Most people get 2 weeks. Yes. Not even that these days.
So in the Navy, you can give 2 years. And then I was following some veteran like groups on Facebook, and some other services only give like 12 months. So I can't imagine doing something for 20 something years and then being like, hey, you have to figure out what life looks like now.
Yeah.
Like go look what life looks like, change your whole everything about you. So I've been programmed like, hey, this is where you're going to go. This is your paycheck. This is your like, I don't have to worry about life insurance or, insurance. Health insurance at all. Like I just went to the doctor. My family went to the doctor. And so there are things that my brain was not ready for, right? I did not know how to go be a civilian. So I was glad that I like took that 2 years and really transitioned my brain to say, hey, listen, people are different on the outside and you have to change that. And so I started changing that and I was ready to go. I was like, listen, I'm trying to get out of here. I found this program called Hiring Our Heroes, which like huge shout out, right? This program is taking care of veterans so that they can transition from the military to civilian life and like really giving them opportunities. We're not just talking about like, hey, you can go work at Google. Hey, you can go work at X and Y. They have like this requirement that the company has to hire so many of these people.
Yep.
So I was like, this is insane. Cool.
Perfect.
So I was sitting down. I'm super, I don't want to say aggressive as a bad word, right? But it was aggressive. Persistent. That's good. Thanks, Doc.
It's marketing.
So I was persistent and I was like, listen, man, I'm literally trying to get a job. I'm not going to sit around here and like twiddle my thumbs. He's like, listen, Ken, go, apply for jobs, go look for this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. So I would get up and sit down for a little bit every morning and just kind of look at jobs and really dig deep. And so I applied.
Was it on LinkedIn or were you looking at all forums or
everywhere?
Yep.
So I was on LinkedIn, I was on Glassdoor, I was on Indeed, I was on Monster. I was like crushing everything I could. And so I start digging. I like apply for jobs that make sense to me, being connected to the military. So Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, things like that. And I like thought, hey, wait a minute, like, let me go look at Amazon one day. I don't know what triggered that thought process, but I did. And I was like, okay, cool. So I quick, like, I'm an IT manager, manage ITs. Boom, shows up. I was like, no, what in the world? I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to play this game. So I literally apply. I'm like just shot in the dark. I literally get up and like walk off from my computer. Sorry.
All good.
So walk off from my computer and I'm like, whatever, dude. I email the dude and tell him what I've done. Like, hey, I applied for this job at Amazon. Boom, boom. And so he doesn't even like, he's like, okay, thanks, Ken. These dudes reach out to me and they're like, hey, Ken, we want to set up an interview with you. And I was like, let me back up. I'm sorry, Top. So my buddy that I mentioned in the very beginning, he like reaches out to me less than 12 hours later. And he's like, hey, dude, your resume came across my desk. And I was like, is this like
real?
Yeah. What is going on? Is this how this works in the real world? I was like, no way. So he and I started having a conversation. Super motivated dude, super great dude, great personality. He is like, becomes my best friend. Like that's the relationship we're building here. And so their HR reaches out to me and was like, hey, we want to like interview you. And I was like, okay, cool. So I get dressed up, like button down shirt, tie, blah, blah, blah. And they like send me a link to, log into their Amazon Chime. I'm like, okay, cool. And they proceed to be like, hey, we want to make sure that you're serious about this job. And I was like, I'm like a veteran, dude. Like if I'm like applying, I'm probably serious. Like I'm going to take this serious.
Yeah. And
so it's like, yes, I'm like interested. I'm serious. And they're like, hey, here's the salary. And I was like, my eyes get like, like silver dollars. Like what?
Whoa.
Like, because when you come out of the military, I don't think that people understand what somebody, even in my position, right? 23 and a half years.
Yeah.
I don't even know my value. I didn't understand my value. And so when they told me that number, it was going to be a shock to me because I'm like, really? And now I look back on that year later and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably worth a little more than I, gave myself credit for. So that wasn't even the interview. That's what's sad. They're like, okay, hey, we're going to set it up with this regional manager and this IT manager, and we'll like let you know. It should be next week. I was like, okay, cool. So I had a 45-minute interview, and the dude messaged me again after I got off the phone. I'm like thinking to myself, like, man, I hope I didn't like make a fool of myself. I hope I'm good. He's like, hey, dude, you're inclined. And I was like, yo, you got to tell me what inclined means.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you.
And so it basically just means like, hey, look, we're yes, we want you to come on board.
That's awesome.
So that was my journey. That's the start of my journey into Amazon. It has been like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
joining Amazon. I did not know that monster was so big, right? It consumes our world.
They're more than just books.
Yeah, right. So they're not just selling books anymore, right? And funny you should say that, right? So humorous story real quick. I got to go see a make on demand. So make on demand literally means that we just make it. So if you order a t-shirt on Amazon, chances are they're probably going to make it. They don't have it sitting on a shelf. They are going to make it.
Amazon itself.
Like they will literally make shirts.
Is that for Amazon branded or more? Too?
Companies. So if you have say you have a t-shirt business and you want to sell all your t-shirts and you're like, hey, boom, 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 and you like give them all the things, right, to make these t-shirts.
Yeah.
They will make the t-shirt as it's ordered and then boom, and push it out the door. So we make books. There's literally a bookstore. We call it a bookstore here in Capel, Texas. So next time you order a softback book, flip to the front or the back. I think it's in the back. It'll say Capel, Texas on it.
Really?
So I ordered a book just for fun. I was like, I got to do this.
Yeah.
So I ordered a book. I've seen them like doing books. It's like massive rolls of paper. It's printers. It's these. You'd be like, dude. So I ordered a book, flipped it open. Sure enough, it said Capel, Texas, in Amazon.
Really?
And I was like, dude, what in the world?
So even if it's like a third party, because like I know like, I order a lot of books from Amazon because I read a lot, and like Penguin Publishing is a pretty big classic company.
Yeah.
Would they print it for them or on their behalf?
It's basically on their behalf, right? So
Really?
to give them that, like, I'm not saying that company specifically,
but
right.
Conceptually.
Conceptually, I'm a book company, Penguin, that you mentioned. I tell them like, hey, I have this book that we want to that we're publishing. They don't want to go out and print 100,000 books, right? Or even whatever they believe they're going to sell, 10,000. So they don't need to like store 10,000 copies. They can just be like, hey, look, here's the PDF, if you will. Print this every time it's ordered.
Really?
So it's crazy, dude. I was like, no way. I would have thought that they'd have been on the shelf, like they were getting a book off. I was like, holy cow. So no, they print them.
That's going to help out those publishing companies. That's just like movies. That's one of the most brutal, tough industries because 99% of movies, 99% of books do not make money. They cost money.
Oh yeah.
Like they're losers, fiscally speaking. And then every once in a while, you'll get lucky. You'll have a writer like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling come along and all of a sudden you're set for life. Like,
yeah. Well, and so hardback books, we don't, so everything's softback. It's going to be huge, so they're going to print those. Those hardback books, those are like literally sitting on shelves somewhere. For those, because they know they will sell. So it's not a, like, well, if it does sell, right? No, they know like J.K. Rowling is going to sell a Harry Potter book like every 5 seconds. I don't know if that, like we said in the beginning, statistics are all made up. So
exactly.
But, so I got into, I was brand new. I was like, man, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And my buddy's like, man, just kind of slow down, man. He's like, I know where you come from. I know you're high speed. He's like, just slow down, man. And so what I learned is that Amazon is really laid back, right?
Really?
So even just me and you wearing polo shirts and a button-down shirt, this is like way dressed up for Amazon. Like show up in a t-shirt, show up in shorts.
That's cool.
So, so the atmosphere and the culture changed my, like the way I looked at things. Like, hey, we can be laid back and still get business done. Like, let's just calm down. And so, that turned a corner for me. And then I started seeing these buildings, man. And I see things like a gigantic Hercules robot arm moving pallets into the air and totes into the air. And I'm like, this is insane. Like we are moving product around for people and getting it to them. So I got to my site, finally get to my site. It's in South Dallas, Texas. It's 1 million square feet. It's 1.5 miles around that sucker.
1.5 miles?
Dude, I've like literally counted steps and been like, bruh, why?
That's
so
good.
if you walk literally around the edge of it, right? So there's no real, like we cut corners and whatnot, but if you walk around the edge of it, it's dang near 1.5 miles. And I'm like, dude, you could get a workout just from like, just taking a stroll around the site. So like 3/4 of my building is this thing that we call an AR field. So it's an Amazon robotics field. So we put this fence up and we cage these robots that look like gigantic Roombas.
Oh, really?
So if you Google it, you can Google it or YouTube it or whatever. You can see the robotics. It's no big secret. We basically have these gigantic Roombas that move around each other and carry the product in these tall pods, if you will. So they take the product to a person, they will pick it off of there and like drop it into a tote or pull it off and set it in a bin, and then they will put it in a box, right? And it goes out the door. So basically taking all this product, every time you push buy now, it could come to my site and we could like pick your product, drop it in a box, package it up, put a shipping label on it, and send it down the road. So we're like the first mile is what it's called. So the first mile is those people that you ordered X on Amazon or ordered, like your liquid death, right?
Yeah, exactly. I did actually.
So you order that and then somebody packages that up. So it's the first mile, right? Somebody's got to put a shipping label on it. The middle mile and that last mile are those transition points where we are taking that product and getting it closer to you. Mm. And then that last mile is that blue truck that shows up out front of your door.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, right.
I don't always lose packages, but when I do, it's USPS.
No, right.
Like that's the biggest selling point for Amazon is the customer service. Like,
oh, huge.
You ever have an issue, they fix it without question. Like no other company. I can't think of any company that's that quick and responsive and respectful of their clients.
Oh, they're huge.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that the bad gets so much attention, and that's what's it's so daunting to see. I work inside in the internal part, and you've seen the customer service or obsession that we have from an external point of view, and it's just insane that the bad seems to get this broader attention or this greater attention, and it's amazing because we do care about our customers.
Yeah,
we care about them so much that we will bend over backwards for you. We are better than Walmart in that aspect, right?
Yeah.
You send something back to us and we're like, oh, this didn't it was wrong. It was listed wrong on the site. It was not the right size. It was X, Y, and Z. We're going to literally take care of it. We will get it done. And we will bend over backwards trying to get it done for you. And so that's what's crazy is that people complain or get upset. I think those are one-offs.
Well, it's unfortunate though, but it is a cultural thing. Cause I've done a lot of research on, why does negative news, why is it so popular? Why do they focus on it? Well, there's several studies that'll say negative news travels 7 times more than positive news, which is sad because I've noticed that I'll post positive things if I have a good interaction with a company and that post won't get as many links or clicks or views when I'm doing it on LinkedIn as if I'm just talking about a positive thing that happened with a business or a milestone. It's just not as many clicks. But with Amazon, I think the first order I ever had where something went wrong, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was in an apartment complex that was terribly logistically laid out. It was hard to tell which mailbox went where. And I had some of those Birchwood KC splat targets they use at the range. Yeah. And I just didn't get it, but it said it was delivered. So dang it. So I went on Amazon, went on the chat bot. I mean, within not even minutes, I had customer service on the phone, and they gave me a refund right then and there. When in all honesty, probably it was USPS or a third party dropping the ball.
Drop it off.
Yeah, they dropped it off. And I was just astonished. And the only other issue I had was, the only other issue was, I want to say, maybe, 3 weeks ago. That's a great story about the beauty and the efficiency of the private sector. So 3 years ago, I had 2 issues. One was with the Amazon order. One was with the state government issue. Yeah. So Amazon ordered some whey protein, and I did the tracking code, and I noticed, it said it was delivered at this date, and delivered via allegedly USPS. Here's the tracking ID. And thankfully, I have Ring, great Amazon, great $1 billion acquisition. So I had my Ring footage to show, that never happened. So I get in the Amazon chat. Within 1 minute, I am talking to a real person on the chat feature. Within 6 minutes, she goes into the system and goes, we had a couple complaints about this seller. We will refund you immediately or give you credit, credit. Yeah. I'm like, just give me a refund. So within 6 minutes, they solved my entire issue.
Yeah. And you were probably frustrated, right? 6 minutes to make you feel happy. Give you that feeling hey, thank you. Yeah.
Now, contrast that, I had an issue with the government, and I was on hold for 47 minutes.
And you probably still didn't get your problem resolved, almost.
No, no. And it is, no.
Yeah, right. You're like, dude, why does it take so long?
It's just, I mean, Amazon has one of the best track records. I mean, that's what Jeff was all about. You ever hear the story about his customer service conference call?
No.
This is fascinating. So
I have a story for you, by the way, about his like frugality and the way he thinks.
Oh yeah.
So please tell your story. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, no worries, man. So one of my favorite examples of customer service where Jeff always bragged, like, we need to have a customer service rep. I think this was maybe 10 years ago where phone support was more prevalent.
Yeah.
He said he wanted his customer service rep, on the phone as soon as possible. And I think it was the chief customer officer. There's an executive in the room, and they were doing the roundtable discussion. He goes, yeah, Jeff goes, what's our customer talk time? Or what's that time delay for them to get someone on the phone? And the guy goes, we're doing great. It's 5 minutes, Jeff. It's awesome. Jeff goes, all right. Jeff pulls out his cell phone, calls his customer support. The room goes silent. 3 minutes go by.
5 minutes go by, I'm sure.
10 minutes go by. It's 30 minutes. It gets up almost like 15 minutes. And finally, a gal picks up the phone, and she's working for Amazon, and he goes, "Oh, hey, how you doing? This is Jeff Bezos." And she's all flattered. He thanked her for doing her great job. And yeah, needless to say that the executive who was in charge of that, he no longer worked there the next day.
Yeah,
because Jeff said we want the best SLAs as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, listen. We have this thing called operational excellence, right? So internally, we look at our metrics, just like any company, right? So if you're a company out there and you're listening, we do exactly what you do. We just look at metrics, right? But we call it operational excellence, and we want to be better every day. So we take this bar, and we're like, hey, we were good here yesterday. We want to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
And here tomorrow. And that's not uncommon in any corporation or company. But we do it on like an obsessive level. So we're like, listen, if it was 30 minutes yesterday, we're trying to be like 10 minutes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're trying to really like change things. And it's extreme. So we really want to like bring that kind of stuff down. The thing I wanted to tell you about was, so this desk in front of us that we're sitting at is amazing work that you've done. So when Jeff Bezos started in 1994, I think, right? He was like broke, and he like poured all his money into this company called Amazon to sell books. And so he's starting this business with a group of friends that he has like gained. And they're like, hey, we need desks like this, right? We need to be able to work. And so to be frugal, they went down to the hardware store and got a door. And some 4x4s and some hardware. And they made these desks. And as I heard about this, I was like, this is insane. Like, oh my goodness. Because I asked, like, what's the obsession with this, like the model of the desk that we have in the office? And they're like, it's called a door desk. You should go look it up. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Sorry. So I went and looked it up in the story, right? So it just dates all the way back to Jeff Bezos and his colleagues that are now CEOs of the company, that they went down to the hardware store and got this door and like made it a desk. We can buy them now like pretty proficiently. They're expensive. It's kind of funny. Nothing against the door desk, but
it's ironic now it's expensive.
Yeah, no, it's right. When he was doing it, it was probably like less than $50, you know, and now it's like obnoxious. But that's exactly what we run into in this world. So.
I have a less exciting story. When I first moved to Texas, I didn't have any furniture.
Yeah,
and I wasn't paid a lot. So what I did is I just went to the recycle bin and took IT gear, turned it into side tables, like servers, and I saw those wooden pallets, and I just hammered the wooden pallets to make a desk.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, and so I took that concept, that idea, and I was like, listen, I can do this at home. I'm a woodworker, just like yourself, on the side, right, as a hobby. So I like, hey, let me see if I can do this. So I literally went to Home Depot and just gathered all the pieces. I had to do so much research too, because it's the weird brackets. I was like, listen, I obsessed over it. I was like, they need to be the same brackets or it won't work. And was able to get them. I have this massive door. I don't have like a little door desk, it's like this table, kind of massive for my workspace. And I'm like, dude, it's got to be the door, like a full size door.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So speaking of woodworking, like, is this like a hobby that you enjoy as well?
Yeah, I always tell people I don't have hobbies, but I do have tax deductible business expenses. So
that's awesome.
It's one of those things where I always wanted to do it. And physically speaking, this table is a terrible, terrible idea. However, it was one of those things where I wanted the podcast to be a really unique experience.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I found this 150-year-old barnwood.
Man.
I said, this should be simple. I did it with my buddy at Proof Point. I'm like, all right, Nick, this should be simple. We could probably do this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Just barnwood, epoxy, bing, bang, you're done.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah, these two tables are identical in dimensions and all the epoxy, but it took us, because we both work, 70, 80, 105 hours a week on my case. So we only did it like for an hour each Sunday. We'd meet up at his place and work on it. So it took us about a year.
Oh, man.
We should have gotten sponsored by Home Depot because we I lost track. I actually have an Excel sheet of like how much we spent and everything, every itemized thing that we bought. And I did pride myself. It's all made in the USA. It's like the epoxy was a little bit more expensive. It's made by MIS epoxy.
Yeah.
And the only thing not made in the USA is the boom arm, the Yeltec mica. That was
gotcha. Yeah.
That's made in Germany. Then sure, headquartered in Illinois.
Right on.
They outsourced a long time ago. So this in Mexico. But no, even the legs are clear coated steel. I think they're made in Oregon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just amazing to see it come to light.
Oh yeah, and dude, it's gorgeous. I don't know if the people can view it and see it.
A little bit. It's like camera 3 maybe.
Yeah. But it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
The 100-year-old wood thing that triggers a memory for me back from the Navy. So we had this. We have to build these boxes when you make chief, and it carries this book inside there. And really, what it is so that the chiefs who are currently there, they can write in it and give you wisdom and give you these words of sage advice, if you will, and say, hey, look, hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
So we went over to this guy's house, and he's like, hey, listen, I have this 100-year-old barnwood to make the majority of your box out of, or your vessel out of. And we're like, no, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So being a woodworker, kind of like we said, like yourself, my parents work with wood. They build cabinets and hang doors and things like that. So it's been a part of my life. So I enjoyed every second of it. And it was something that I enjoyed and was able to do and share with those guys. So I would sit and be sanding these boxes at home and dude, this is the best moment of my life. But it was 100-year-old wood on the bottom. And then I created these tops for it just out of some pine wood and was able to get it laser engraved. And got these massive handles and these window hasp locks on it.
Where do you find handles at, or what materials are they?
Dude, so it's so funny because the handle we picked out as a team, everybody's like, oh, yeah, this handle because it's cheaper. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm going to go down and get to Ace Hardware somewhere. And I got this gate pull.
Oh, cool.
So there's two of us, me and this dude that was bigger than me.
Yeah.
And so for those that can't see me sitting here, right? I'm 5'10". I weigh 220.
Yeah.
No, maybe I don't weigh 220, but whatever. And then there's this dude that was 6'2", and he was 250, 260. And I'm like, dude, we cannot carry these around with 3 fingers for 6 weeks. It's not going to work. So I just was made a decision and was I'm going to go down and get these bigger handles for us, right? Yeah. For the two of us. And everybody loved it. And then we had this problem locking them because you're supposed to keep that book secure and lock it. And the decision was made to get these ugly looking combination locks and connected to it. And I was like, listen, no, man. So I went down to Ace, right? And they had these window hasps. That basically are a locking mechanism that you set on a window. So how you remember back in the day when the window, you unlock the window from the top.
Oh yeah, my parents still have that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So there are in some windows are not you open them different ways, but it's a locking mechanism and it has a key.
Oh,
so
really?
you can lock it, and then it's locked by a key and it can't be opened by a kid or sounds really dangerous, in a fire situation.
No.
But in this situation, it worked because you basically, all of us had this, the key was identical. So it was keyed identically for all these window hasps.
Yeah.
So we could all unlock each other's boxes if we needed to. And then we were able to keep it secure. So it was super awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was such a great experience, part of the making that rank. And maybe I'll have to bring it over and show it to you sometime. It's super cool. It. Yeah. So
are your kids in the family into woodworking too, or carrying on the tradition?
Man, I wish that I could say that my kids would even be remotely attracted to that. My son loves video games.
Yep.
He is a gamer. He is any obnoxious 13-year-old that he's loud and he talks so much trash to his friends. And I know people are judging me. I'm like, don't judge me. I'm good. I played video games for like 20 something years, so I understand that community and how toxic it is.
That's half the fun was like,
oh yeah.
I mean, what's his platform? He's using PlayStation, Xbox,
So he did
PC.
PlayStation forever. He has a PC now. He's
getting really into it.
Lives on Steam. He lives on Discord with his friends. Like, you let your 13-year-old son talk to people you have never met.
Of course.
Listen, man, we live in an environment, in a world where technology has taken over.
Oh, yeah.
Bad things will happen, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like monitor those things or be aware of those things and don't demonize them, then you'll be okay, right? Like, you can be like, hey, dude, like, who you talking to? And your person, kid, whoever, should be able to like answer you with some like,
confidence.
Confidence. Like, hey, look, I'm just talking to my friends. Okay, cool. How about we like cool it down just a little bit? Like, hey, bring it down a notch.
Be careful. It's all being recorded. You know that, right?
Yeah, right. So he enjoys that. My wife's not a huge fan of video games. She's like, God, please just get off the video games. And she's gonna hate me for telling her, talking about her, in public, in a public forum like that. But no, she loves that he is doing something he loves. The funny part is that he also plays cello.
Really?
He picked up cello when we moved to McKinney. And he went to middle school, and I guess they do orchestra in middle school, right? And my oldest daughter, who's 22, did the same thing. She played violin. He picks up cello, and he's like, dude, this is awesome. And so he wants to, this is going to sound really crazy, he wants to score music for video games. He's like, listen, I want to write music for those moments in video games where you're like walking down this path, and you're like, and I'm like, okay, dude, like,
that's awesome.
Do your thing, man. Like, cool. Whatever that looks like, let's go do that, right?
Absolutely.
So,
is he on the YouTube yet or recording?
No, so I don't know totally what that looks like, right? So I'm old. I feel old. I thought that streaming sounded really cool, and I watched people on Twitch, which Amazon owns, by the way, too.
I was about to say, shout out.
Shout out to our partner. But it was such a quick transition to streaming, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't jump in that pool really quick, you were not getting in the pool.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like streaming, boom, 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 boom. And like, you have to, and once you're in it, it's really good because you're in it, right? And then you've got this support cast, right? Of people who can think like that. Like, so realistically, on my own, to answer your question, I was not that dude who was going to find like cameras and microphones like we're sitting in front of. I just didn't have that functionality to say, hey, like, let's go do this. Some point, maybe. He's got a great personality.
Yeah.
And that's what you really need to create content.
Absolutely.
You got to have this personality, or you are going to be
no one's going to care.
No one's going to care. Where are the clicks? Like we talked about earlier, right?
It's so revolutionary. Like 20 years ago, someone told me, you can make a living as an average person just putting crap on the internet. I would have laughed at you.
Oh yeah, huge.
And it's like, no, that's crazy. Now it's almost, it's almost sad. Like those quote unquote kids on the internet are making more than most adults. Like, PewDiePie's worth millions upon millions upon millions of dollars.
Oh, when he said, when my son said he was watching like Mr. Beast, I was like, okay, I gotta go look at this dude.
Yep.
So I went and hunted it down and started like watching some of his content. I was like, okay, I get it. Right? There's this attraction to that. Craziness. And it's not like the dude was like, it's not like my son like picked up, you know how they used to say like guns in video games would like destroy a kid and things like that, right? It's huge misconception cliche.
Half the Congress in the 90s, we gotta argue about something.
Right. So he didn't pick up anything and start like, destroying our house, right? Like, so he just enjoyed the content. Huge shout out to this guy that I like follow on LinkedIn and Facebook and every other platform that he's on. He does not need the shout out, but this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, he goes by Gary V.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of him.
Great guy, dude. He talks about like having to like, you should post content like 4 times a day.
Oh yeah.
Like go do you, go be you, go do you. And that's how I see my son. Is that he can be him and he enjoys himself, dude. He just like loves every second of himself. And I'm like, dude, cool. Go be you, man. I don't need you to be a soccer star or whatever star. On the other hand, I have a daughter. I have 4 kids, by the way. So I have a younger daughter who's my soccer star. So she, and I say that like lightheartedly. She loves soccer. She like, enjoys sports. So she's the drastic opposite of my son. Like
Really?
she likes to be outside. She wants to go swimming. She wants to like go play soccer. And I'm like, okay, dude, cool. So love every second of it. I have a 22-year-old who lives in Virginia. She's a nurse. She's doing God's work by taking care of people. I love every second that she's like that kind of caring person.
That's awesome.
And then I have a she'll be 18, but she's 17 right now. Daughter who's in a wheelchair, bound to a wheelchair. So we take care of her every day. So our life is hectic and interesting all at the same time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's a little bit about me. So
That's awesome.
yeah, man. So
What else do you like to do outside of work?
man, I wish I like, it's crazy. I wish I could say there was like just this one thing, right? So to like clear my head at the end of the day, I like to sit down and like play video games, first person shooters. I used to play, everybody's going to be like, I can't believe you played that video game. I played World of Warcraft for a very long time, to the demise almost of my marriage. Right. And it's like, oh, that sounds so crazy, Ken. Why did you do that?
Or why didn't she play?
Yeah, right. Don't tell her that, Tom. She's like, look, me or it. And I was like, cool, I got you. Let's not in the world here. And so I moved here 2 years, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I sat back down at that video game and I was like, what was the entertainment? Oh my gosh, dude. I literally was able to look at it and be like, I don't know why I played this for so long. It was so eye-opening. It's like this light bulb came on. I was like, oh my gosh. So, but I do sit down and play Call of Duty, Overwatch, first-person shooters that I can just get up and walk away from and be like, okay, whatever, and not suck my time away from my family and things like that. So, other than that, so I do woodworking.
Working on projects now?
So the most, this is going to make you laugh. So the most recent project that I did was, our daughter has to have a bath. Just like every normal human. Yeah. We have this trough, right? So it's 100-gallon trough, and we have to lift her. So I was like, listen, I need to build something really quick that this trough can sit on and be supported by 100 gallons of water. Yeah. And so I threw together this base for that trough that we got at Tractor Supply so that we could set it on there and it'd be sturdy enough so that we could lift her into it instead of lifting her down into it and bending down. So lifting a 100-pound person is definitely not something anybody wants to do for fun. Yeah. So it's definitely daunting. And so I was trying to make it as easy on my wife and I as we could to get her into to her bath and whatnot. So super, super awesome. But that's the most recent project. I love working with wood. I don't know if it's just in the genes or whatnot, but I enjoy working on it. I built my daughter's beds.
Oh, really?
Things like that. Yeah. So I've my brother is would consider him a master woodworker. He legitimately came down and literally built these bunk beds for my kids in 2 hours. We literally spent
2 hours. That's it.
Yeah, spent time going to the store. Yeah, pick up all the stuff. He's like, grab X, Y, and Z, and I was like, okay, dude. He literally was just kind of back off, dude, and let me do this, and I was like, okay, and he just went to work, and it was done in an instant. He carried the parts up there, and he and I was like, what in the world? He's like, yeah, let's go have a beer, man. I was like, oh my goodness, dude. So it was super crazy. My dad is the same way. So he built my daughter, my 22-year-old daughter. She was young at the time. She did the whole Pinterest thing. She's like, hey, Dad, can you ask Granddad if he can do this? And I was like, yeah, he's coming, so let's figure this out, right? And he literally looked at the picture, no dimensions, no things on it. He's like, yeah, let's go get some wood and go get some parts. And he's putting it together in his head. And we go to the driveway and he is building this thing. There's this 4-foot mirror that we put lights around, like a vanity. And then we built this, table, that has a little, access point on the side. So she could put her hair dryers down in there and whatnot. It was Like it was a masterpiece off of Pinterest, dude. We could have put it right next to the Pinterest picture. It'd have been the same.
That's
It's
awesome.
so crazy, dude. I was like, man, they are like master woodworkers.
It's a rare
Easy.
skill.
Oh yeah. So, yeah. But listen, man, I have enjoyed talking with you about all this stuff. I know that it is. We've been talking for a hot minute. It seems like. I would love to come back and talk to you though,
Absolutely.
and you know, just chit chat some more.
Your privilege. Appreciate
Oh,
your
yeah.
service and thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you, bud. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell anyone. Thank you so much. You all stay safe. Have a great day. Topping Talks.